Well, hello, and happy Friday. If you were here 2 hours ago, you will have realized that Shannon was on live 2 hours early for our scheduled live with Lisa Kirby. If you don't know us, my name is Shannon Morse. I am one of the partners here at thegreendoorlife, and welcome and good morning. I hope you got to sleep in. Congratulations. So, if you are new to these little Friday lives, hello, thank you for the love. We join pretty much every Friday. We're going to be making it a thing where we talk about a couple of topics that are coming up inside of our community. Today's topics are core training and how to not be awkward when talking to some of your friends or family or your partners about nutrition decisions that you might be making, and essentially making these decisions powerfully for yourself and how to talk to people about it, because it's a thing. It's just basic communication skills, really. So we are going to be diving into those two topics today. Hello, lovely humans who are joining and taking some time to check out what we're about. I'm going to be waiting for the lovely Lisa Kirby to join any moment now. But in the meantime, I will get started on our first topic of the day. And if you have any certain questions that you have percolating around health, nutrition, movement, meditation, mindset, please go ahead, feel free, and ask away. And if you don't, you just want to hang out and listen to some people talking, then you're welcome to do that too. So here we go. We're going to start with core training. So when we think about core training, most people might think about crunches. They might think about different types of crunches, whatever it might be, just soliciting contraction of your core. And I would like to express and share that in my experience of around 20 years of teaching movement in some sort, there are a ton of ways to train your core. And my favorite core training has evolved over a period of time. Here comes Lisa. Hello, Lisa. Okay, we're almost there. I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait for just a second so that we can continue this conversation together. And I might do a little countdown. 5, 4, 3, a 2, a 1. Haha. It is 5 seconds. Well, that's fun. And she should be joining. There we go. Hello.
Hello. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Good morning.
Good morning.
I am giggling to myself as I was here 2 hours ago.
Yes. Now we get to do this again.
We get to do it again. And
Now
yeah, so here we are.
it's the crossing time zones,
Yes,
right?
it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yes. I am currently in Nashville, and sometimes I'm in California, so this sometimes happens. So I just kind of started talking about our two topics of the day, core training and how to not be awkward when you're talking to friends or family about what you're choosing to fuel your body with. So that's what we're going to just call it, how to not be awkward.
Big one.
Yes. Lisa, what would you like to start with?
Let's start with core training. I think this has been coming up a lot when clients first come to us, especially women. And as we age, there's a tendency to store body fat around the midsection if we're not already in a consistent, health and wellness and balanced nutrition routine. And one of the common misconceptions is going straight to, oh, I need to do more sit-ups, I need to do more ab work to target that fat loss. So I just thought we could bust some myths about targeted fat loss, weight gain in the midsection, and then what the core is. I think we tend to focus on the small area, but it's actually more than that. And then how to best train for that.
I love it. Okay, let's do it.
All
I
right.
also love how you're starting with the common misconceptions. So I think that's big. Let's kind of go from there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So when we think about the common misconceptions of how do I get, we'll just say the general sense is, how do I get a six pack?
Yeah.
So let's say that I was the client. asking you, how do I get a six pack? What would your response be?
Well, my response now that I know, I think something that's really interesting to consider are the different body types. And we can even just use yours and mine as an example. So I tend to carry a majority of my fat cells from my hips down. And so it's fairly easy for me personally when anytime I lose weight, it goes face, chest, stomach. And I can get a six pack while carrying a significant amount of body fat in my lower half. It almost looks like I have two completely different body types. Whereas there's other body types where women don't carry as much fat cells in the lower half, and it's more directed around the abdomen, maybe in a little of the chest area, the back of the arms. And so that right off the bat is going to be like the number one thing you need to consider is where do you store your body fat? Where do you tend to store it? Some people are blessed and store it all over, right? So I would say that's like number one, have like a realistic understanding of what your body has a tendency to do.
Yes. I love starting there because that really allows people to further identify like, oh, that might be me or, whatever that might look like. And yeah, your specific body type, I'm always like, damn, she gets abs like real fast. And for some of our other body types, uh, well, and I'll just speak from my personal experience. If I am just slightly loose, I guess, in carbohydrate intake, I will notice that I am not as svelte in my midsection, although the rest of me kind of looks the same.
Yeah.
So it's almost like that area that really changes the most is water retention essentially around my waistline. And and you'll notice that these two things have nothing to do with core training. It's all about how much body fat you're carrying.
Yes.
So, so the reality is that we all have abdominal muscles. We might have different sizes and shapes of abdominal muscles, but realistically, if we have excess body fat, we won't be able to see them because the body fat will be covering them, but they're under there.
Right.
So realistically, like the biggest name of the game in terms of defining your core is starting with your nutrition.
Yes.
Um, and then kind of moving from there, I think the other thing that really sticks out for me with core training is just allowing people to understand like the function of our core. And, a lot of times when people think about core training, they're thinking about crunches or bicycle crunches or whatever might be like planking or whatever that kind of thing is. But there's a function where I almost think about using core training to support strength training. That as a function to maintain this super solid base of support so that you can carry load in your strength training sessions. I don't really see it anymore as like, oh, I want to define my core, I want to get spelt here. It's like, no, I need a really strong core in order to carry load. So I think that is another piece that probably in my beginning years I just didn't really think about. I was like, ooh, we're gonna get like a thin waist or whatever it might be. And now I really see it as functional training, that if that isn't in place, then you can really feel it in all of your other lifts. So there's that also. And so we were kind of going to talk about some of maybe our favorite core training exercises. So what's your favorite right now?
I would say the most eye-opening experience for me when I realized like the light bulb went off of, oh, sit-ups and these kind of traditional like targeted ab exercises were doing nothing for me and potentially like pushing out my stomach more. So that was, I learned best through ridiculous amounts of research. So I was reading and reading, following along, reading all these, functional trainers content and realizing, oh my gosh, especially after kids, I noticed a little bit of, extra skin and just like a change in my body there. And what I was realizing is the things that I was doing like with sit-ups and all these other things were actually making my stomach worse. And so I started going down the rabbit hole and I'm like, what is going on? And that started the very beginning of the journey for me of learning more about core. And then of course you and I diving deep into this, where if you're not breathing properly and engaging your core properly while you're doing sit-ups, yes, they can be effective. They can be part of a well-rounded routine. But if you're doing them improperly, they can actually make it worse. So that was the first thing that kind of the light bulb moment went off. And then when I started powerlifting for the first time ever while I was pregnant the second time, it was the strangest thing. I felt like cardio was so hard. I was just exhausted. I was also caring for another little one. And so I got into powerlifting. I'm like, F it, I'm going to get bigger anyway. I was like, let's learn how to use a barbell. This is a great time. I cannot even begin to describe how insane it was, like the muscle I built that year, because I didn't care. I was like, great, I'm just eating food, I'm lifting heavy. I was building muscle in places I had never seen before, even in my core. And this was from front squats, back squats, deadlifts, all these unique ways of training my core with added load that I had never done before. And then the only kind of targeted traditional ab exercises I was doing were planks and then kind of hanging from the bar and just using my abs to pull my legs up. So then I started to learn more about, okay, anytime you're bracing your core and you're lifting something over your head, or especially with like front loaded, front squats with a barbell or like a goblet squat, you are, if you're doing it properly and you're bracing your core. I mean, at the end of my pregnancy, I popped out a kid and I had a 6-pack 3 days later. And I was like, this is insane. The amount of strength I built in my core for the first time ever from lifting heavy. So those are my favorite.
Yes, I completely second that. The first time that I was talking about this 2 hours ago, I was also expressing the same thing, and especially as it relates to the different muscle groups of our core. So we have our rectus abdominis, which is essentially our 6-pack. It inserts into the bottom ribs and then into the pelvis. And so its function is really like closing the range of motion, closing the distance between those two areas. And then we have our obliques, our inner and outer obliques, and then we have our transverse abdominals, which are really for intra-abdominal pressure, so they contract through exhalation. And that exhalation of drawing the belly button into the spine and or bracing or like bearing down a little bit for setting the core up to have that overhead press or that vertical loading is, and I second that experience. It's like once I started to lift heavy and learn to really breathe and brace the core, I didn't have to do really any core work anymore. It's like I kind of did, but not really. I actually found that I was already doing core work prior. Once I did the heavy lifting with proper breathing, my core developed in a way that it hadn't developed with core work on its own in that way. And not to say that you can't feel like a tightness that occurs when you do more core work, or you might feel like, oh, I'm sore in my obliques or my core, and sometimes that can feel great. But generally speaking, it's like the overhead pressing and the front loading and the deadlifts and the bracing is my favorite core exercise for
Yes.
sure.
Yes. And you feel like a badass,
Yes,
yeah.
yes, absolutely. Yeah, and so it's really funny, just kind of like the misconceptions. And I think at the end of the day, just to kind of summarize here, the first thing in terms of really being able to have a visual impact is to look at your diet first, diet and water intake. If you are dehydrated, you're going to find that you're going to be retaining water more, and that will also show up around your midsection, affecting your skin texture and your muscle tone and all of these things. So those are the two first things. And then really looking at thinking about how you're breathing. And there's different types of breathing for core contraction for something like Pilates and or strength training. And it's helpful to know the difference. And maybe we can talk about that on another call in the different breathing styles. because it's so helpful, and there's so many people who are, amazing in the gym, and yet they really don't know how to incorporate breath.
Mhm.
And every time you do incorporate breath, if you think about all of the rep ranges that you're doing in a training session, through that breathing, you are getting a contraction of the transverse abdominals with every single rep if you're doing it properly. So then in that, it's like, do you really need to do crunches at the end? Probably not.
No.
You've been doing a lot of intentional engagement throughout the entire thing. So I love that. Shall
I
we move in?
also
Oh,
I
go
have this
ahead.
visual of when you're like exactly what you're talking about when you're engaging that transverse abdominis in these positions. It's like long, it's lengthened, it's like contracting in and like keeping everything tight versus
Mm-hmm.
I think about a sit up now and it's like, I don't know, I just think of it's like, no, that's like the opposite, the
Mm,
ending, the place where you end up in a sit up if you're not breathing properly, you're
mm,
pushing out. It's like
mm-hmm.
the opposite of what you're really looking for. So,
Right, that distension. And thank you for saying that too, because I always love to look at like the how the fibers wrap in the different muscle groups. So the transverse abdominal, the fibers wrap laterally around the waistline. So
mhm.
it almost acts like a girdle. So when you were actually really able to engage the transverse abdominals through exhalation and drawing in, then you'll find that your waist naturally starts to become smaller, tighter, and compacts more in that way, which is really a pretty cool thing.
Yeah.
Um, as a total side note, and I feel like I would be doing a disservice to humanity if I didn't share this, but when you have turned on your transverse abdominals, it also helps the PC muscle. It can help to correct diastasis recti, and it also improves orgasms. Just
Yes.
saying.
Yes.
So, lots of reasons to learn how to
Yes.
breathe properly inside of your training sessions. Uh, shall we go into our next topic?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so our next topic is really around just communication, and we're going to look at the aspect of communicating when you're doing something like changing your nutrition and you have a husband, a family, um, friends that you might be living with, whoever is in your life that might have to make an adjustment because now you are making different decisions, or who might have any sort of their own beliefs around what is quote unquote good or bad or right or wrong, and kind of how to share about what you're doing in a way that can be really powerful for you and also be an invitation for the other to learn if they would like. So, hello, Charlie. Um, so, Lise, when you kind of hear about this stuff come up with clients, what's some of the thoughts that come to you?
It's first and foremost, I feel it resonates. I understand because I went through the same thing. So when I first learned about nutrition and macronutrients and micronutrients and everything and started applying changes in my own life, I have a husband and two boys, two young kids. I experienced that kind of resistance a little bit of, oh, mommy's doing something weird. I'm weighing out my food, I'm tracking my food. And so I started to immediately build this story based on past experiences with
Mm,
diets, with,
mm.
watching my mom eating weird and eating differently my whole life. Love you, mom. I know you're going to watch the replay. Um, and so I instantly labeled what we teach,
Mm,
nutritional balancing and nutrition education. I instantly labeled it and put a filter on it of, oh, this is a diet. And it's
mm,
something to hide and feel
mm,
shameful about, of like, either I'm so vain or, I'm doing this because I'm so vain and I want to change my body. When really deep down, the why for me was like, I wanted to feel better. I wanted to
mhm,
feel comfortable in my skin. So that was the first, like, it always resonates immediately because I understand, because I've been
mm,
there. And once you and I had started chatting about that and I brought it up, I started to realize, oh, I can just change my perspective, right? And so then instead of hiding everything and trying to compartmentalize what I was doing, I brought the whole family in. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't try to change anyone. I didn't try to dictate what they were going to eat. I was simply sharing what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so instead of saying, oh, mommy's on a diet, I'm trying to lose weight, absolutely not.
Mm.
I shared with the boys, check this out. We're going to look at this nutrition label here. Do you know what a nutrition label is? I haven't really taken a look at it ever in my life. Let's look at this together. Wow, the serving size here says this. And when I weigh it out, it's totally different. And so I made it a game
Mm-hmm.
and started as I was learning and educating myself, I brought them into it and it was fun. And now it's like my kids are 10 and 5 and they know more than most adults about nutrition. And they're so in tune with their bodies. They understand what different foods do. This is an
Mm.
energy food. This is a muscle building food. This is a satiation food. This gives me the vitamins and minerals I need. So I think it really starts with your perspective. And
Mm-hmm.
part of this process, why it's so incredible, is you'll start to peel back those layers and stories in this area of nutrition. And then you're like, wait, okay, I'm doing that. And what other parts of my life am I telling these stories, right?
Mm-hmm. I I so love that in such a massive way because for anyone who's watching and they have kids, um, or they don't have kids and they have anyone in their life that they really care about, uh, once it's just it's a phenomenally funny thing that we don't all understand this just from the get-go, that we haven't really been taught to listen to what our body is telling us, and then to have the understanding and the resources and the inner knowing to just tune in and go, oh, I may need a little bit more of this today, or the reason why I'm low in energy is because this is not, I haven't had this in my diet in the last, you know, 3 hours, whatever it might be. And that is such a massive gift to anyone.
Yeah.
And I love that it's absolutely a shift in perspective. And there's such a big kind of like, there's like such a big lesson in there for all of us, because part of it is like shift in perspective. Whatever we put as that intention is what we're then going to share with others as the intention. If it's coming from a place of something is wrong and I have to fix it, then that's the resonancy, the resonance that we're going to be attracting, and then that's going to be creating that into the reality of our environment. But if we're shifting it into, well, actually, this is fascinating, and I'm so excited to learn how to feed my body in a way that I feel alive, I feel energized, I feel healthy, I feel fired up, you know? It's
Yeah.
like this shift is probably the biggest shift that we can make in the physical form on a daily and moment to moment basis. So that part, like just right away, oh, hello, Lumna. So lovely to see you. Um, that aspect right there, it just makes me so freaking happy. And it also makes me want to give it to everyone. And, you know, that this should be taught in school. But we're working on that.
Yes. Yes.
Um, and inside of that kind of perspective shift, it's really interesting because your experience, you know, I didn't have a family to like introduce it to in terms of kids, but I
Yeah.
did have a family in terms of my brother and my dad and friends in my life.
Mhm.
And I think it's just interesting, and I'll just share the experience that I had when I was first starting out. And this is kind of part of my personality too, for better or for worse. My experience was like, I'm going to do this thing. It's probably going to be hard, but I'm doing it for me. And if y'all want to learn some stuff, cool. If you don't, okay. I'm going to be over here figuring out some math
Yeah.
on my food scale, and I'm going to be a little bit over. I'm going to kind of track like so many things that it's going to be a little obsessive, and then I'm going to stop and like I'm just trying to figure some stuff out. And what I realized through that experience of really just owning, like, yo guys, I'm just going to be doing a thing. I don't even have to tell you about it. I'm just going to do it, is that all of a sudden everyone started to be like, hey, what are you doing? What
Yeah.
what are you doing over there? And I was like, oh, did you want to, well, this is what I'm doing. Wow, can I do that too? And I was like, really? You want to do this too? And what I found is that all of my inner circle then became clients,
Yes.
and my whole family has done the nutrition program, and it's fucking awesome. It's
Yes.
like the best gift to be able to share with your friends and family. So whatever the shift is, whether you're just like, yo, I'm doing this thing and it's all good and like, you know, you do you and I'm going to do me. Whether it's that or it's coming from the shift of, well, this isn't a diet. This isn't because something's wrong or something has to be fixed. This is because I'm choosing to empower myself in such a way, and I'm actually filling in a gap that realistically should be part of our birthright as humans. It's kind of wild that we don't know how to feed ourselves. And if you think about it, every
Yeah.
single other animal on the planet knows.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We're so detached from, I mean, and I think that's part of the problem is food is so processed now. So if you're primarily coming from a processed diet, you're not
Mm,
going to get those cues.
hmm
You're not going to get those satiation cues. You're not going to get that drive of like, oh, I've had way too much carbohydrate and fats. Like I don't have any amino acids today. Like you're not going to get that, right? I love what you just shared, Shannon, and something that resonated for me. And I know a lot of other people who are more empathic and have like people pleasing tendencies is this is an eye-opening process when you change your nutrition, alcohol intake, and just general like lifestyle habits. You start to realize where are you doing stuff for other people and not
mm,
yourself? Where are
hmm
you saying yes to things to like not rock the boat?
mm,
And oh, I'm gonna drink alcohol even though I actually really don't want to because this is just what we do.
hmm
And something that was really challenging for me, and I know for a lot of our clients through this process, is setting these new boundaries of like, that's actually not what I want to do at all. And it's not
mm,
worth it. And I'm going to choose something else and sit with that discomfort of being different.
hmm
But it's aligned with what you want. And so it's constantly remembering and honoring and staying in
mm,
integrity with yourself and not doing things for other people,
hmm
especially when
Yes.
it comes to your health, right?
And actually like putting things, yeah, putting things inside your body.
Yes.
And what I love about that kind of discovery that unfolds for some of our clients is that once they kind of start to flex that muscle in the relationship to food, then that muscle is, it's turned on, and then it becomes easier to do that in other areas of our life as well. And to really kind of bring ourselves back into our sovereignty and go and back to be in tune with ourselves.
Yeah.
Um, and it's a pretty incredible process. I actually just had dinner with one of our clients yesterday here in Nashville.
Yeah.
Sandy, if you watch this, that was great and that was so fun. And what's really cool was to hear her kind of response and her talking about that it's all about blood sugar levels and that she really had no idea how her moods and her energy fluctuations were so erratic just based on the type, the pairing, the quantity, the timing of the food that she was having. And it's been like such a game changer. And when we went out to dinner, she was like, "Oh, you're really like easy breezy about this." And I was like,
Yes.
"This doesn't have to be complicated.
Yep.
You choose good ingredients, you get all your macronutrients in, you understand what feels good in your body, you do some tests on yourself. You have a coach that knows kind of like how to guide you in which way or, try to help you to understand what the signs and signals that your body is providing for you, what they actually mean. And then you essentially go through a discovery process until you fine tune and you move all these little toggle buttons around. And then all of a sudden you're like, wait a second. Oh, that's actually easy. And
Yeah.
actually, my body's probably been telling me this the whole time. And I just didn't, I was either maybe toxic and I didn't
Yeah.
have that feedback yet. things were very inconsistent, like whatever the inconsistency was with diet, movement, exercise, sleep, sometimes we can be, our senses kind of numb a little bit if we are in that
Yes.
state, but once they balance out, then you're going to find that your body is very keen to go, yo, I need some water,
Yes. Oh my
or
gosh.
whatever it is.
I remember when we were first talking about this, I'm like, and before I really learned about nutrition, I was like, my intuition is telling me to eat all the cookies and like my cravings and intuition were guiding me towards ridiculous decisions. But what I have come to understand is when you do things that turn off the signals at first. So drinking coffee first thing in the morning. We were just talking about this. Waking up, going straight to coffee. It's an appetite suppressant. It cranks up your cortisol. Skipping meals all day. You're not going to get those signs. You are literally turning off your body's intuitive signs to drink water, eat food, eat, not overeat, and eat more in moderation on this like frequent schedule. And now with all these changes, it's like I'm hungry. When I'm like dialed in and I'm on it, it's like I'm hungry every 3.5, 4 hours. Like this. And I think for a lot of people and women in particular, that hunger is an inconvenience or they're scared. I remember being irritated and scared of this like overwhelming hunger feeling, like just another thing that I have to like deal with. And now it's like, oh my God, it's a gift to be able to honor that hunger and put together a really nourishing meal when I can,
Yes,
So,
100%. Oh, beautiful. Okay, well, y'all, thanks for joining us either now or sometime in the future. And yeah, if you have any questions and you want us to cover some things, we might talk about different types of breathing and engagement next week. Who knows? We might talk about something completely different. So, wishing everybody a fabulous Friday, and we will see you next time, or we'll see you another time.
happy Friday.